Yo, what's good, YouTube, man? It's Gary with another Fan TV, man. Back at another video. At the content of this video, go smash that like button at the content of this channel. Go and subscribe, man. Look, so Ravens Commander game preview, game of the week, right? You know, Lamar Jackson, Jayden Daniels are getting a lot of comparisons this week. We'll probably talk about that, but you know, battle of the beltway, all these kind of things going on, right? The Commander fans are excited, and they should be, right? They got a team that's 4-1, right? A team that wasn't expected to do much this year, right? So it's a big game, right? So we'll start off talking about the injury report, right? So for the excuse me, for the Commanders, the main thing I see is that one of their safeties is out, Tyler Owens, and that Brian Robinson, their starting running back, is questionable, and he's been DNP in practice all week, right? So that's big news. Looks like Austin Eckler was on an injury report, but like he's full go to play this week. And yeah, so that's what really stands out to me. All right, so you know, if the Commanders are going to be down Brian Robinson, that could be a big effect to their run game. All right, now as far as the Ravens go, Malik Harrison out, Arthur Marlette out, Broderick Washington out. Now, as far as guys that are questionable, Marlon Humphrey is questionable. But he's been a limited participant in practice the last couple of days. Ronnie Stanley is questionable. He's been limited the last couple of days as well. And I know Bateman was on here. Okay, no, Bateman is good. Full participant in practice. No designation next to his name. So a lot of guys that looks like they're going to be healthy. All right. Andrew Voorhees, full participant in practice all week, but the Ravens might not mess with the offensive line situation, right? So he might not play anyway. Roger Rosengarten, full participant. He's good to go. So a lot of good news on the Ravens injury report, right? The guys that are out, you know, aren't the main starters, right? Still good players, but not the main starters. So that's good news for the Ravens. Okay. Now, as far as the Commanders go, as far as what they've done, last 3 games, they 3-0, right? They beat the Bengals on Monday night, 38-33. Crazy game. I think that was a game where they said nobody punted that game at all, right? 42-14 versus the Cardinals, and win versus the Browns last week, 34-13, right? So the Commanders are on a roll, right? You know, you can't deny that. They're doing their thing. So definitely going to be a test for the Ravens, okay? I think that the Commanders haven't played a bunch of good teams, right? You know, I mean, the best thing they probably played is what? Probably the Bengals, and the Bengals are 1-4. So the Ravens are going to be a real test for them, all right? As far as the Commanders' defense goes, they've been better the last couple of weeks, right? Obviously, giving up, you know, 13 and 14 to their last 2 opponents. You know, they did give up 33 to the Bengals. But what stands out to me is the fact that, you know, their points per game allowed 23. As far as their passing defense is middle of the pack, so really not too bad. They do give 130 yards on the ground, which happens to be really the strength of their on the other side too with their offense. So when I look at this Commanders defense, right, they play a lot of linebackers, right? So you know you're going to get Frankie Louvu and you're going to get Bobby Wagner on the field a lot. So the Ravens have to be able to take advantage of some of those looks, right? So it kind of reminds me of how when, you know, last year, right, the Ravens had Patrick Queen and Roquan, right? You had 2 linebackers that could kind of do it all, so you didn't really need them to come off the field. That's kind of the feel I get when I watch the Commanders play, right? They believe in Bobby Wagner. They believe in Frankie Louvu. I mean, we got to think about it. Bobby Wagner was a guy that, you know, his career was kind of going on a downtrend, right? Seemed like he was getting ready to be out the league a little bit, right? So now he's kind of had that kind of upswing again, right? So the Ravens are going to have to test that, honestly. And Louvu, right? Louvu is a guy that's kind of like their main, I would say that their heart and soul of defense, right? He plays like a maniac out there, right? They'll line him up inside, outside. So Ravens got to be very conscious about where Frankie Louvu is on the field, right? He wear number 4, so you think he a DB or something, but no, that's a linebacker, right? So I was impressed when I saw him, right? You know, the Browns offense was not very good, right? But the Commanders did things that made the Browns uncomfortable. So, you know, you gotta give credit where credit is due. You know, ain't nothing they can do. All right. Now for the Commanders offense, right, which has been the main talking point, right? Because of Jayden Daniels rookie having a great season so far. They are the number 1 team in the league converting on 3rd down, almost 52% conversion rate on 3rd down. All right. Passing attempts very low, 27 a game. You know, you're protecting your rookie, but they're first in completion percentage, right? What I noticed when I watched them, a lot of quick hitters, right? So, slants over the middle, stuff like that, and throws down the sideline, right? This is where it kind of gets funny with the comparison, to Lamar Jackson and Jayden Daniels, because stylistically they're very different, right? Jayden Daniels is way more comfortable throwing down the sideline and outside the numbers, right? And he doesn't really access the middle of the field that well, right? Lamar Jackson coming in was a guy that was more middle of the field, not as comfortable on the sidelines. Now Lamar Jackson, at this point in his career, he throws to every part of the field pretty well, right? So, there's really no weakness to me when I see that, right? So just stylistically, they're kind of very different quarterbacks, right? I know the media will try to pit these two guys together, but listen, one is a rookie, one is a two-time NFL MVP, right? We don't have to compare them off the bat, right? One guy has only played 5 games in the NFL, all right? Jayden Daniels looks like a really, really good quarterback, but let him grow, right? We don't have to compare, because you see two black quarterbacks that are athletic with a little bit of slight in frame that they're the same player. They're not the same player, right? Only thing they have in common is that they're black and they can run. That's really it. They play the position very, very differently, if we're being honest. All right. Okay, so as far as running the ball, right? Second in the league in yards per game, second in rushing attempts per game, both behind the Baltimore Ravens, right? So we have a matchup of the two best running games, yards wise, in the NFL this Sunday, right? So that's interesting to watch as well, right? So for the Ravens, historically, I think I saw a stat that said the Ravens are like 15-2 against rookie quarterbacks, right? I'm not leaning on that 100%, but it is a good indication that the Ravens haven't really been tripped up by rookie quarterbacks in the past, right? And I don't expect this game to be any different, right? Like I said, Commanders fans they can be excited, everything like that. Good for them because they haven't had a lot to cheer about since RG3 rookie year, right? And I remember that. It was crazy when Commander fans, when they get excited about their team, it's a big deal, right? They're one of the the staple franchises in the NFL, right? So I get that, right? But in this kind of game, I think the Ravens hold most of the advantages in this game. I really do, right? So, Commanders coming with a better record, things like that, but Ravens hold most of the advantages in this game. All right. All right. So when I get to the keys of the game, okay. So when I get to the keys of the game, for the offense, right? For the Ravens offense, they gotta be able to work the middle of the field, right? What this Washington defense will do, they'll play too high, they'll play a lot of cover 2, and then they'll also play some man coverage, right? So they had to be able to work the middle of the field, right? And one of my keys right here is you got to make Frankie Louisville and Bobby Wagner work, right? Make Bobby Wagner cover somebody in space. Make him cover Mark Andrews. Make him cover Justice Hill, right? And like I said, we talked about, styles earlier. The thing that Lamar Jackson still does at a high level is throw the ball over the middle of the field. So I think those kind of throws are going to be available to him in this game, right? Now, when I talked about Louisville, right? He's not a traditional linebacker, right? So when it comes to passing downs, they will really put him at outside linebacker and let him go against tackles. Sometimes they have him on over the guard. So he's going to be all over the place, right? Now, Bobby Wagner, he'll blitz sometimes, but traditional linebacker. So the Ravens have to be able to take advantage of that, right? Bobby Wagner is still an older player. He's one of the great linebackers of the past generation, right? But that is in the past, right? So Ravens have to be able to take advantage of that and work the middle of the field to me, right? I think the Commanders are going to do some things to take away the sideline. So the Ravens can work the middle of the field, they'll be okay. And luckily, that's one of the things Lamar Jackson does great. And that's actually going to lead to one of the X factors when we talk about it, right? So, all right, defense. This is a rally and tackle game, right? So, I guess you say every game is like that, but especially for this Commanders team, right? So when I watch the offense play, a lot of screens, a lot of slants, a lot of short stuff, and then Jayden Daniels can hit you over the top because he throws a nice goal ball down the sideline. He is good at that, right? He has good deep accuracy. He really does. But yeah, rally and tackle, because when you got to get screens, you got to get slants, you got to be able to tackle in space. We saw Jamar Chase take a swing screen, 70 yards, 75 yards versus the Ravens. The Ravens can't allow that to happen, obviously. But the Commanders will try them on the edge, right, with screens and stuff like that, like I mentioned, right? So the Ravens have to be able to come up and tackle, all right? That wasn't really an issue last year. It wasn't really an issue this year besides a couple of plays in the Bengals game. So I'm leaning on the fact that the Ravens will be okay in handling this offense in that manner, right? I think they'll be all right. And then second thing is they got to be aligned properly, okay? On that touchdown to T. Higgins and a lot of plays where guys are just looking around, can't do that versus Washington offense. And here's why: because they use a lot of trip sets, right? So a lot of 3 to the field. They even do quad and have 4 wide receivers to the field, right? To one side of the field. So you have to know where you're supposed to be at, because there's too many players on one side of the field. They flood the side of the field to make it easier for Daniels to read it out, right? And he's doing a great job, right? Like I said, 76% completion percentage, right? So he's doing his thing, right? So the Ravens have to be aligned properly, and they have to know their assignments and their principles, right? That is very, very basic stuff, but that's some of the stuff that has been missing for the Ravens through this first 5 games of the year, right? And the Commanders will try you with that, all right? If you have a trip set, quad set, they're doing that to confuse the defense and overload one side of the field and see how you're going to adjust to that. The Ravens have to be prepared for that, all right? Also, read option game, they have, you have a quarterback with the athletic ability of Jayden Daniels. Read option is obviously going to be a part of it. Ravens should be used to that. Even if it is just defending Lamar Jackson in practice, you should be used to that, right? So that is a part of the Commanders' offense. I don't think that should be a part that gives the Ravens a lot of trouble. And try to keep Jayden Daniels in the pocket. All right. X factors for the game, right? The main one for me is the Ravens tight ends. Right? I haven't really seen a team that's going to make their linebackers work, right? Like the Ravens can. The Ravens have 3 tight ends that can truly catch and can truly block. So it doesn't matter who's in the game, they can find space, right? We saw Charlie Kohler make multiple plays the last couple of weeks, right? Versus Dallas, versus the Bengals last week, right? So Charlie Kohler is coming into his own. So I think the Ravens tight ends could have a big day. We saw Mark Andrews have his best day of the season last week, right? We saw Isaiah Likely catch 2 touchdowns, right? Only had 13 yards, but came up with 2 big touchdowns in the game. So, to me, that's the X factor, right? Can these Ravens tight ends get off in this game? Because I think the opportunities are going to be there for them, right? We know the Ravens are going to be able to run the football because we know the Ravens are going to want to run the football because that's the part of the identity of the team, right? So when it comes to guys like Derrick Henry, Justice Hill, I expect them to be, part of the offense. And we saw the wide receivers go off last week as well, but like I said, when I just look at this team, I just think that the way that you can attack this Commanders team is putting those safeties and putting those linebackers in coverage and making them guard athletic tight ends who know how to get open, right? So I think that's going to be a part of the game plan, right? Could be wrong here, but that's just what I feel like from watching it, right? So for this game, I think that the Ravens are the better team. The Commanders got to come here. So it's going to be a different kind of environment for Jayden Daniels, right? So for me, when I see this game, I think the Ravens do win this game by 10 plus points. I really do, right? I could be wrong, and it could be like, damn, the Ravens blew this and that, but just seeing how the teams match up, the Ravens are the better team, and what the Commanders do well, I think matches up versus the Ravens, and what the Ravens do well, I don't think the Commanders match up with as well, right? If the Ravens are going to be in these heavy packages and the Commanders are going to keep their 2 linebackers on the field and just stay in nickel looks and things like that, I don't know how well that's going to go for them in terms of the running game. And then even in the passing game, because like I said, we got 3 tight ends that can run and block. So, you never know what's going to happen when these guys are in the game, right? So that's how I feel about it, right? I think the Ravens do win this game by multiple scores. But, I'm excited for this game, man. It's got a lot of buzz this week. So that's my thoughts on it, man. But give me your thoughts in the comments. It's Gabriel. This is Fan TV. I'm out.